What up, doe? It's Buster coming to you live from the basement in Delco as we prepare for Wrestlemania 40. Going to be in South Philadelphia first week of April, and there's so many moments in 40 years of history there that we could highlight. A lot of them get a little bit too much shine, in my opinion. Hogan versus Andre, does that have the same bite that it did in the late 80s? Savage and Steamboat is kind of boring when you go back and watch it now. So I thought I might take a moment to bring you the most underrated WrestleMania matches of all time, in my opinion. Let's go. Bret Hart versus Owen Hart at WrestleMania 10 brought us the first ever brother versus brother match. Of course, not only were they great wrestlers in their own right, so you knew that was going to be a banger, but they've been wrestling each other since they were babies in the dungeon. They know each other in and out. The storytelling got even better when you realized this was match 1 of 2 for Bret Hart, as he would go on to face Yokozuna for the WWE title. Owen wins and destroys Bret's leg in the process, but fun fact, I gotta tell you, I met Owen Hart when I was like 10 years old. I was at a house show in Detroit. Very, very nice guy. I met him, the Smoking Guns, and Diesel. And Earl Hebner was back there. And the reason why that sticks out is because my pen ran out of ink, and Owen was the one who realized it and said, hey, we got to get you a better pen. He said, Ebner, give me a pen for this kid. He pulls it out of his shirt pocket. Now I have a new pen thanks to Owen Hart. Got his autograph. He was a very nice guy despite him being peak heel at the moment. Diesel, on the other hand, total dick. I think the only reason why Bret versus Owen at WrestleMania 10 was underrated is because of his untimely demise and the disdain that Owen's widow had towards Vince McMahon and the WWE. Otherwise, it would probably be celebrated a little bit more. Let's move on. WrestleMania 5 brought us Ultimate Warrior versus Rick Rude. Anytime these two faced each other, it was elite. Of course, kicking off with Rick Rude, calling everybody sweat hogs, and remember how he would always airbrush his opponent's face on his booty cheeks. Also, these two weren't the most gracious in the ring. They were working pretty stiff on each other, pause. You thought the Warrior was going to roll on Rick Rude, but he actually lost, thanks to Bobby Heenan and the help with the pin, but it was a match that would live on forever. Gorilla Monsoon said it best.
History has been made here at WrestleMania 5!
Number 8 comes to us from WrestleMania 7, British Bulldog versus the Warlord. Two fridges going at it. What a pile of meat in the middle of the ring you got there. Shout out to Slick on the management for the Warlord. I feel like this match would have been celebrated more and probably would be more highlighted. You think about all the false finishes and all the athleticism that was going on. But unfortunately, Bulldog and Warlord, they're not necessarily the best on the mic, so it didn't get as much hype leading up to. Something else I'd like to point out, despite the main event being Hulk Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter in the name of America, you see all the American flags around the room, but the British Bulldog was a fan favorite over the American Warlord, even though the crowd was all USA, USA. I love how wrestling doesn't make sense sometimes. One of the reasons why we love the Attitude Era so much is because the tag titles could be defended in a match called the Dumpster Match. New Age Outlaws versus Chainsaw Charlie and Cactus Jack. And man, was this a CTE special. Sheep pans bouncing off each other's face. I'm pretty sure Billy Gunn broke his nose. Pulling no punches on each other, taking it to the back, swinging each other into the biggest soda cans I'd ever seen. Complete with Chainsaw Charlie driving a forklift. Because why not? New Age Outlaws lost this. However, fun fact, this was the last night that New Age Outlaws weren't in DX. The very next night, they would join Hunter and X-Pac. But tonight, the Hardcore Legends celebrate as the new tag team champions. WrestleMania 12 brought us the Iron Man match, Bret and Shawn. We're not talking about that. We're towards Goldust's character, which from what I hear is ironic, but I'm not going to get into any of that. Allegedly. They two-parted this match leading up to the arena there in Anaheim. So after Undertaker versus Diesel, Goldust was dragged to the ring and stripped in front of everybody, which I guess is how it ended. That's how he lost. Whatever. It was awesome. Undertaker versus Sid at WrestleMania 13 in a no DQ match was very important. It was the kickoff. It was the prelude to Attitude Era. Bret was turning heel, so at the beginning of the match, he comes out yelling at Shawn Michaels, who's on commentary, who lost his smile. And when you think Undertaker versus Sid, you don't necessarily think they're taken to air, but boy, did they ever. I also love the blurring of the lines as Bret comes to the ring. It was like, who's a heel? Who's a babyface? This was the beginning of magic in WWE and taking back the ratings throne. A match that's not talked about very much was absolutely instrumental in the Attitude Era as The Rock was taking over the Nation of Domination from Farouk, which would play in later, defending his Intercontinental title against Ken Shamrock, who was a total badass, even kicked out after the People's Elbow. Shamrock, on a short list of people that have made The Rock tap out, won the Intercontinental title for just a moment before the refs reversed the decision due to Ken Shamrock losing his mind and going nuts on everybody. Hey, a couple chair shots to the head will do that to you. WrestleMania 8, Ric Flair versus Randy Macho Man Savage. Just saying that sounds like magic, and it was for the WWE title. It should have been the main event. Feels like some Hogan politics were at play, but nonetheless, we were in store for an evening. Leading up to this match, Ric Flair was telling Savage that he was hooking up with Miss Elizabeth on the low, even Photoshop, or this was pre-Photoshop, so probably airbrush, some pictures with Flair and Elizabeth together. Two masters of the ring. You always felt like Savage really, really hated his opponents, whether he was the heel or the babyface. He didn't care. He was still wrestling like Macho Man. And Flair with a head of bleach blonde hair that looks amazing with blood dripping through it, right? You had good storytelling with the knuckles that were thrown in the ring. They were supposed to help Flair, but they ended up helping Macho Man. Then Elizabeth coming down to the ring. By the way, shout out to a young Shane McMahon in the mix here of officials. Flair even kissed Miss Elizabeth right there on the lips. I wonder if that was the first time that ever happened. But either way, Macho Man prevails and takes off with his John and the title. The Intercontinental title ladder match at WrestleMania 32. This is a worker's dream match. Dolph Ziggler, The Miz, Cody Rhodes as Stardust, Sin Cara, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Zack Ryder. All these guys with something to prove. It took seconds for them to start destroying each other. This was very early in the Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens friends, foes, back and forth story. Ziggler and The Miz might be actually two of the most underrated wrestlers in WWE history, but that's a whole nother video. Sin Cara repping the Lucha Dragons, flying everywhere. Stardust, aka Cody Rhodes, has yet to show us what he's really capable of, but you got a piece of it with an homage to his pops with the polka dot ladder. But it was Zack Ryder who would bring Long Island to Dallas, Texas, winning the Intercontinental title, hugging his dad there in the ring. A lot of people will say the best ladder matches include Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys, of course, Razor versus Shawn at WrestleMania 10, but this match, absolutely criminally underrated. So what is it? What's the most underrated WrestleMania match in history? In my opinion, the pandemic era was very tough, not only for the rest of the world, but wrestling fans, as you were forced to watch most of the matches in a training facility. However, WrestleMania 2020 brought us Undertaker's final match in a cinematic presentation, the Boneyard match with AJ Styles. AJ baited Undertaker into this match by making fun of his wife leading up to the event, even rolling up in a hearse, jumping out of the casket. It was scary. It was like a horror movie was starting. But then it was the American badass Undertaker that rolls up on his Harley, blasting Metallica like Dan Campbell before a Detroit Lions playoff match. You knew Taker wasn't playing. The trash talk was at an all-time high in this match, with Undertaker haunting AJ Styles, channeling his best Michael Myers.
Come on, old man.
Yeah.
Come on, let's see what you got. You think you still got it?
I got enough for you.
AJ was able to mount a little bit of offense thanks to his friends in the OC and some druids who rolled in like the Foot Clan in a Ninja Turtles fight. But as DMX once said,
I just love when a nigga bring his whole crew. It's just a bigger piece of cake for me to chew a hole through.
those guys did slow Undertaker down. You thought for a second AJ actually had it, even calling Undertaker,
You're nothing. You're nobody.
But then in a very memeable moment, Undertaker pops up behind AJ, and it's on. My favorite moments towards the end was Undertaker's questions for AJ.
You still want to talk? Hey, what's my wife's name?
All before dropping Styles in the grave that was dug for the dead man, but revealed that it wasn't Undertaker's name on that tombstone. Undertaker's final WrestleMania has him driving off into the night, fist in the air, blasting the tunes, and thus concluding, my opinion, WrestleMania's most underrated match. Hey, I hope you like the list, and if you don't, I got 2 words for you. Like and subscribe. I'll be back.